Guess who's back? It's Kamish back here with another team preview. This time we got big Packers fan and spend and Curly Lambeaugini, a guy that has not ever won the Ming division. That division's always been seems to have some pretty decent owners. The champions are Ultimus Prime, Randall Flag, Bills Mafia, and Deuce over that time frame. Two of those teams aren't even in the division anymore. But one of those teams that got took over already won the division again, and that was Deuce, of course, last year. When we look at spend, again, it's going to be interesting to dig into the power rankings here to just see how he's going to do. And that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to share my screen and really just get into this PowerPoint presentation for spend here today. And let's have a look at his outlook for the year, because that's what everybody wants to find out here. So first off, on offense, I gave you a ranking of 14th, not ideal in a 16-team league. We're going to break that down a little bit more. You'll see that it's definitely one position group that's weighing you down, well, maybe a couple. So let's just get right into that. So first off, quarterback. So when I want to talk about spend in his preview today, he's made some significant off-season trades this year, and I think we have to look at it as were those trades beneficial for him. And one of the big trades he made earlier this year was acquiring Jordan Love, and Jordan Love was shipped from True North. It cost Samaje Perine, Sam Howell, and a round one. That round one happened to be Tank Bigsby. So for Jordan Love, it cost Sam Howell, Samaje Perine, and Tank Bigsby, two running backs, and potentially a quarterback that might even be better than Jordan Love. Hey, I get it. I understand trying to get you a quarterback off your favorite team, so that's great. In terms of quarterback rankings, I gave you a score here of 11th in the league. Might even be higher than where you should be. The only reason I gave you 11th was because of the potential of Anthony Richardson. I thought you made the right move there at 3, getting Anthony Richardson. I don't know if you were hoping for the running back to fall or if Anthony Richardson was the plan all along. I guess none of us will really know. But really, that's the only reason I gave you the rank of 11th, because Jordan Love and Mac Jones, there's a lot of question marks there. And you very well could be dead last in the quarterback rankings. We don't know. All three of your quarterbacks have significant question marks moving forward into this year. So I think that could be a bit of a problem for you, but also Anthony Richardson could turn out to be the next big thing. So that's why I gave you the score of 11th. When we proceed forward, this is where things get really bad for you. Running back, I have you ranked dead last in the entire league. When you look at this running group, there is not one single guy here in this running room that you can say is an RB1. Maybe not even an RB2. Gus Edwards, I think, would be the closest in this group. The rest are guys that, maybe Chase Edmonds gets some time in Denver. Who knows? I don't even think he's in Denver anymore, right? So I'll just have to wait to see really what the running backs do for you. Jerick McKinnon, he's always been a fairly decent relief guy. Chase Edmonds on Tampa Bay now, sorry. Israel Abanikanda, if that's how you say it, I think this kid has a lot of potential. He's got a lot of speed. Dwayne McBride, I can see why you drafted him with all the talk of Dalvin Cook leaving. But the rest of the group here, even those guys, are they going to get any time? I don't think so. I think this group is really not going to put up much points for each week. And when you compare it to the other running back rooms across the league, you can see why I've ranked you dead last. And I'm pretty sure most of the league would agree with me on this one. Wide receivers, you get a little bit better. There's no doubt. I actually have you ranked 7th in the league in wide receivers. So this is one of your biggest and strongest position groups. You got Metcalf, Watson, Pickens. Watson and Pickens are second-year wide receivers. Huge to have that kind of young talent in your wide receiver room. Jacoby Myers, of course, going to Vegas as the number two there. He could get more time. Alec Pierce is the number two in Indianapolis, as it seems. So I think this wide receiver room is great. I think you can roll out six starters, no problem, to fill up your flex spots as well as your regular wide receiver spots. I am surprised to see that Denzel Mims is still on a roster. This guy kind of seems like he's been a bust his whole career, but he's still on a roster, and I guess he's still on a roster in real life. So maybe that's why he's actually still on a team here. But your wide receiver room looks good as long as Watson and Pickens don't suffer the sophomore slump. You could be looking at a pretty decent point production year from this group. Tight ends, again, I think this is a bit of a problem for you. I got you ranked 13th. The issue for you here is, well, Gesicki went to New England. So who's the TE1 in New England? Hunter Henry, Gesicki. Hunter Henry signed the big contract there last year to go to New England, him and Jonnu Smith. It turned out to be kind of a bust. So for both of these guys, yeah, they might get some points, but you're sharing a TE1 role with two guys here, which, you definitely want to try to have two TE1s dressed. Jelani Woods, I gave you a hard time about this guy last year saying, hey, there was other guys ahead of him on the depth chart. I haven't seen Jelani Woods do much of anything. And then Tucker Kraft, we'll have to see. Luke Musgrave was also drafted by Green Bay. So we'll have to see if Tucker Kraft has some sort of role. Of course, you can always stash him on your taxi till he does. But this group doesn't scare me whatsoever. And you can see why you got an offensive score of 14th. The quarterbacks, there's question marks. Running back room's horrible. Tight end room is pretty horrible as well. Your wide receiver room is definitely pretty good. So now we move over to your defense. And wow, lo and behold, you've ranked 14th again. So if I'm previewing you here second in terms of these previews, really I'm going from worst to best. That's what I'm basically going to outline here for everyone. So I have you as the second worst team in this league this year. I'm sure it doesn't feel good to hear that. When I look at your defense, well, of course, I lumped the DLs and LBs together at the top, LBs in the middle, and some of those are LBs and DBs, sorry, and then DBs at the bottom. So when I look at the top here, well, yeah, Aaron Donald, he's usually a great point production guy, but when he won the Super Bowl, I think he was done. Shouldn't have come back. Now he's on a team that sucks. He's making the money, and it's just making the Rams worse from a rebuilding perspective. So I think Aaron Donald's time could very well be done. Rashawn Gary, he's a good rotational pass rusher, it seems, but they brought in new guys like Lucas Van Ness, so we'll see how much time that takes away. You brought in Miles Murphy, the rookie, but with Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard still there in Cincy, we'll have to see if he's just, again, a rotational pass rusher. Leonard Floyd's not even on a team. So that's got to be a cause for concern. The rest of this group, again, doesn't really scare me from a pass rushing points production standpoint. When I go to your LBs, again, when we go to LBs are so important because your middle linebackers are getting a ton of tackles, right? It's typically your middle linebackers. And here you got Eric Kendricks. That's it. The veteran, he's old. They got rid of him for a reason, I feel. Then you have Neal and Peppers, who are more in that hybrid DB, LB role. So again, that room to me looks pretty weak. I'm sure it does to everyone else too. And then at DB, you've just made some recent changes. You got Blankenship recently on the waiver, which I thought was a good pick. He was on my list. Brisker coming into year 2 in Chicago. I think Chicago is going to get better. Surtain looks like a great corner. McDuffie there in Kansas City, another young corner. But again, these are corners, so they're boom or bust in terms of point production, because if they're not getting interceptions, well, they're not getting a lot of tackles, right? Like, think about it. Let's say the top receiver on a team gets 5 catches that game. Well, Trent McDuffie might be covering them, so he may get 5 tackles if he's lucky, right? So that's 6 points, which would probably be a big day for Trent McDuffie, to be honest. So just things to be aware of. I feel when it comes to DBs, you typically want to try to stick to safeties for the most part. I mean, there are some corners out there that do quite well, so don't misquote me on that one. But when I look at this defensive group, I don't see anything here that's frightening to me. So that's the team. One other thing I want to talk about here for Sven is just the draft outlook. And maybe I should have dug into this a little bit more for Robert, but I want, again, maybe Sven to get some awareness or some tips from this. So I'm looking at your draft picks for next year, and wow, you got 12 picks. That's insanity, right? And I mean, two in the first round, three in the second round, two thirds, three fourths, two fifths. Likely you're going to get a lot of talent, but here is where my caveat comes in. Well, with 12 new guys coming in next year, well, you can only put five on taxi. So if you're going to keep those 12 rookies you're drafting, you're going to have to drop seven guys off this lineup. When I look at the lineup, you probably could cut seven guys, right? Like I'm looking at your bench right now. Gaskin could probably go when this all goes down. Mims, Keanu Neal, these types of guys, Nick Cross, Derek Brown, they could probably all get their outright release when that happens. But I want teams to think about that as they're rebuilding. You get all these picks, but can they even go on your roster that year? So something to think about. You probably have a plan for this, I'm sure. Sven, just to conclude here for you, again, my outlook for you this year is not a good one. I think you're in a tough division. I think Bills Mafia is a strong team, and Deuce is the strongest team in the league. You play them twice, so that's going to be a tough uphill battle to climb. And you better hope Jordan Love does become the answer. And even if he doesn't, you got Anthony Richardson there as the backup plan for either Love or Jones. So I do love that. But your running room is in desperate need of help. Thanks for listening.